On July 23rd, we are hosting quite an event at the Bell House in Brooklyn, and you can get your tickets now. Eliza and I will be joined on stage by some of the food world's most interesting figures, including Haley Catalano and Chuck Cruz, and the one and only Padma Lakshmi. We will talk about summer cooking and some of the big topics of the day. The event will also feature a live taping of Bon Appetit's Bake Club with Jesse Shepchek and Shilpa Uskokovic. That's Haley, Chuck, Shilpa, Jesse, and Padma, all appearing on the Bell House stage with Eliza and I. July 23rd is the date. Get your tickets at the Bell House website or the link in our show notes. I hope to see you there.
Well, I think 1 star is good. When I'm approaching this, we only have 3-4 stars in New York City right now. And there's not that many 3 stars, actually, either. So I feel like I want to restore the sense that 1 star is a respectable rating.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. We've all long been fans of Ligaya Mishan, who last month was named co-chief restaurant critic at the New York Times. Working alongside Tejal Rao, Ligaya will be reviewing restaurants in New York City as well as around the country, and compiling the now iconic and much debated 100 Best Restaurants in New York list. So what does it feel like to take over for Pete Wells? We went right to the source for this wonderful conversation. We discussed personal taste, mining history books, and what exactly makes a 1-star review. We also go back to Ligaya's days writing the Hungry City column and talk about how this big job was truly a decade in the making. We love this fresh direction for the New York Times food section, and we're happy to have one of its new chief critics into the studio. I hope you enjoy this episode. Ligaya Mishan, welcome to This Is Taste. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you. I've said on the show and written about it. I'm just thrilled with the new lineup at the Times. You and Tejal Rao are co-chief restaurant critics. The remit is incredible. You'll be traveling the country together. You'll be reviewing New York, of course. How do you feel about this new job?
It's thrilling. It's slightly nerve-wracking, and but I'm just so excited to start. And
yeah. Well, you already started. We'll talk about your review.
That's true.
Of The View. It dropped this week, and I have some questions about his terrific review. So we usually start this show by asking guests, especially New York guests, like, where are you dining out? It's a great way to talk about what's happening in the scene. I would ask you this, but I know you've been dining out many times, but you can't tell me. But how do you dine out when you're off the clock?
So I don't know if I'll have a chance to dine off the clock ever again. But before I became the critic, the kind of places that I would go to where if I'm just meeting a friend in the middle of the day, I always say, they're not necessarily the best places because that's not how I want to eat all the time. I want to go to places that just have a lot of character, where there's an element of surprise and it feels very New York. So I go to places like Thai Diner and Golden Diner. And then if I just need a break from eating, I'll go to ABCV and just have the most beautiful salad.
Yeah.
That's a reset.
ABCV is like their breakfast too.
Oh, it's just, yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah. But really, how much are you dining out right now?
So I've been doing 3 nights a week, which, Pete Wells used to go out every night, sometimes 2 dinners a night.
His doctor noticed.
Yeah. No, he gave all of himself. So yeah. It's really great to share this job with Tejal because we both we're each filing. It's every other week, so we had a little more time to also think about all these places that we're eating and the stories that they tell.
It's a smart move just for a job that we as fans of the column, we want to see longevity. We want to see you in your seat for a long time because it's more powerful when you have perspective over time. I think time is a really big part of the column. But tell me a little bit about the conversations you and Tejal had while you were interviewing for the job or after you found out? Because like you really had, I mean, you obviously interviewed for this job. It was a very competitive job. A lot of great candidates, I'm sure, applied. What's it like when you and Tejal get on the phone or chat in person and realize this is a brand new era for the Times?
Well, it was a very long process. And I didn't know during it what would happen. And there are so many great food writers. So the whole time I just wasn't sure. And as soon as I found out, I mean, I always suspected,
Okay.
of course, it should be Tejal. Absolutely. So to find out that it was her and that we were going to get to do it together, the very first time we talked, I think we were a little giddy. It was just, she's so great. I've been a fan for so long. I've been a fan before I met her when I was reading her at the Village Voice.
Yeah.
And I actually went back and I found these sort of fangirl tweets that I had written about her because she's just quoting lines because she's so good. So, yeah. And then, of course, we've had to also wrestle with how do we do this? What are the logistics? What do the stars mean? And what are the places? We're drawn to the same kinds of places, but we also want to give this really full picture of all the ways you can eat and all of these cities across the country. It's a huge project. It's a super exciting project, and we want to be able to do it justice.
Let me ask you, how do you then, with this remit to travel the country, and wonderful that you're doing that, I think it's very powerful that the Times is investing in food coverage around the country. How do you keep New York, though, focused, and how do you keep the volume of restaurants up? I know there was a small mention in the announcement of your job that there would be more reviews by other voices, perhaps with stars. How does New York stay focused? Because we know the column is a New York column, first and foremost.
Yeah, I think that some people greeted the announcement with a little trepidation that suddenly New York was being abandoned. And that's totally not the case. I am very committed to this city. And that's why, for my first review, I really wanted to write this love letter to New York. And in some ways, I think that New York, maybe it informs the way I look at the country, which is that I felt like when I was writing my Hungry City column, that I was trying to create a portrait of New York in all of its messiness and its multitude. And that's the same brief for writing about the country. Actually, the country also is full of all of these corners and pockets of different things that most people, we don't necessarily have access to, and how fantastic. With this job, I'll be able to go to these places and try to discover all of that. So I think, there will be other reviews. I think we're still figuring out how that goes and how that'll happen. But I am committed to New York as well.
I bet. I mean, you live here. You're a New Yorker through and through, and I know there'll be a commitment to more reviews, which I think is incredible to hear. With the byline under the review column, the restaurant review column, does your tone and style change from all those amazing Hungry City dispatches you wrote from 2012 to 2018?
2020, because I wrote right up until the pandemic.
So 8 years of those Hungry City columns. Like, does your voice and point of view change now that it's a starred review? It's the lead review. It's a little different than those Hungry City columns in some ways. I
don't want to get sort of trapped in some sense that now it's going to have to be more reverential.
Sure.
Or that I only write about restaurants that are at a certain level. What does that mean? We have this wonderful example, obviously, of Jonathan Gold, who embraced it all. And Pete also, over time, was able to do that so that he could give 3 stars to a truck in the Bronx that makes lechon. Which I think is fantastic. And I keep harking back to, I don't know if it was in the 60s when we had a critic who gave 4 stars to all of Chinatown, which is such a move. I love it.
Power move.
I think that there should still be room to play. So I can't completely get away from myself anyway. This is sort of what I sound like. I hope that over the course of writing Hungry City that I did mature, at least in my thinking. Definitely. I definitely look back and there are some reviews where I think I could have had more wisdom there. And so maybe I'll make slightly different choices, but I still hope. I still hope that there can be both moments of poetry and then moments of a little punchiness.
And maybe changes in format and styles. I mean, giving a whole neighborhood 4 stars. I mean, bring that back. I kind of love that. I'm kind of kidding, but let me ask you about Hungry City. I actually went through the archives last night, and the Times has an infinite scroll. So, like, literally, Ligaya, it took me 2 minutes to get to your first review. That's how many columns you wrote. And you started on May 22nd, 2012, reviewing Anjapar, a global chain, an Indian chain serving Chettinad cuisine. Now, do you remember that review? Do you remember going to that restaurant?
I do. And I think there's always a little nervousness around the very first review. Although what was nice with that was that, in a way, I realized that so many different restaurants could have been the first review. It just needed to be the kind of restaurant that took you a little bit out of yourself. And I think I remember that there is a dish it was full of whole garlic cloves, which just was fantastic. It was just, okay, I love garlic, but I'd never seen so many garlic cloves present in one dish.
It was ambitious.
And I thought, this is fantastic. I'm going all in. And I think I do remember in that review, too, is that I didn't know anything about Chettinad cuisine. It's something very specific. I've eaten tons of Indian food, but not from this particular place. And so I remember doing the research to really get a sense and trying to understand. So in some ways, I think, with that review, it's sort of set the tone for everything else, which is that you've always got to do the work before you go to the restaurant.
We'll get to some of your research practice because you really have historically rich writing and you understand the history of food. I mean, in the column for 8 years, you're covering Japanese snacks in Jackson Heights. You're writing early about Whole Foods in the East Village. You're writing about Georgian dumplings in Sheepshead Bay. I mean, when you're writing for these 8 years, what's that like having that column? I mean, it's a big city and you were able to find these places. I mean, that's a full-time job. I know it wasn't your full-time job, but what was that process like?
I wish I could have done more. I feel
Really?
like there were more places.
Oh my gosh.
I think if I sometimes thought, if I had gotten this job when I was 22 years old, just out of college, then I would have just been on foot wandering through the city. And of course, I got it when I had a young child. I wasn't quite as free. So I had to work hard to find places. I'm just very lucky that I have a crew of people who are all really excited about these kinds of restaurants who would give me tips. And then, of course, I'd be reviewing one place and I'd be walking down the street and there's another place down the, around the corner and you think, oh, I've got to go there. But you have this feeling that every storefront is a promise, right? That could be the one. It's just, New York is it's just endless. And there's just so many things I still don't know.
You have real excitement. Like I'm watching you smile throughout this, and you have to have that love and excitement for this job because it's not easy. What's it like reporting for you? I mean, what's your toolkit? I mean, are you using photography to remember dishes? Like, how do you, when you're especially dropped into a neighborhood you might not be as familiar with, and trying to capture really the scene? What's it like reviewing these restaurants?
Yeah, tons of photos because I feel like taking notes is noticeable, but everybody takes photos. But I am taking photos on the street. I want to know what's around and what's going on here. What's the scene? So all of that, and then just all of the reading about the specific cuisine. And it's interesting now that I'll be doing cuisines which seem more familiar, like a French restaurant. Actually, it's not. I mean, I guess maybe what I do is I try to approach everything as if it's unfamiliar. So to try to set aside what I know and to learn more about it. So now I feel like, okay, I've got to go to all of the high-end French restaurants that I just haven't gotten around to going to because I don't necessarily want to eat in that way all the time. But in order to understand one French place, do I need to understand all of New York's other French places?
So that's part of your dining out, too, is catching up. Looking at the 100, and you just dropped the 100, you weren't involved with that list.
Right.
But, I mean, what's that like, balancing that and then the travel and then also the column in New York?
I think it's a lot, but I'm excited about it. I think I definitely want to get a year. I'm glad there's like a year start for the next 100.
Yeah.
Because I have to go to not only that 100, but the places that Pete went to that got dropped from the list.
Yeah.
And then all the other places that might open, the places that I think should be on the list that aren't on the list, the places that I don't know about yet. So
the new places?
Yeah, there's
all of the new places.
Oh, there's so much.
It's a lot.
So I think it's a lot, but it's fun. It's exhausting. It's fun. It's a great excuse to get together with my friends.
Yeah.
As I can finally be social. I feel like during the pandemic there was this real pause for everyone, right? That it was hard to come out of afterward. And now I'm like, okay, everybody, the crew's back together. My Hungry City crew.
Your Hungry City crew.
We ride tonight.
You guys are like city biking around or taking the subway out, taking cabs. I mean, seeing the city and the city so alive.
Yes.
It's such an alive place.
Yes.
And to write about food is writing about the city, and they go hand in hand. And what a city! I mean, are you feeling optimistic about the restaurant scene here in New York? I mean, there's been so many headwinds. I mean, with the cost of everything and the sticker shock on menus, and of course, a pandemic, kept us indoors. But just in modern times, real estate is so crazy right now, and restaurants just can't survive.
So we were talking the other day, me and Tejal, somebody had asked, the difference in restaurant scenes in LA and New York. And I can't really speak to LA, but I do think real estate plays this big role for New York in that there's so many tiny places where they've got I don't even know, the kitchen is jury-rigged out of nothing. And people are eking out miracles. And that's what feels so special to me about New York. So also, right, we have grand restaurants with gorgeous dining rooms and incredibly formal service. And that's part of the city too. The city is all of these things. I do think that getting a reservation is such a drag right now. It's so hard to get into restaurants. I have all the notifies set.
Yeah.
I have probably 20 notifies every given night because just in case, and I have people on standby, don't know where we're going to eat.
Really? And so when Notify hits, you just are always on your phone and you're just going there that night?
Yes, I feel it's become kind of Pavlovian. So even today I was running and I heard that distinctive beep. I've got a distinctive sound for Resi. And I was like, and it was too late. I like swerved, I took out my phone, and I didn't make it. But it wouldn't have mattered if my phone had been in my hand and I
couldn't have snagged it.
Still not have. I don't know who gets those. I don't know.
It's really reassuring just to know that your reporting is also the reservation acquisition. Because, I mean, that's such a big part of the story is actually getting into the place.
Yeah. It's you know what you wish for in the old days where you could just be totally spontaneous or even just a few days before. Oh, let's get together. Why don't we try that new place? You can't.
You feel the pressure to try to get into these places. But I feel your column, your New York writing at least, is going to really be a bunch of surprises because I just know you can't help yourself.
I hope so.
Well, let's talk about some of your research because I think your writing is very distinct in this wonderful world of food writing we live in. I think you really have a great balance of reporting. You write about scenes in restaurants and you clearly were there and asking questions and taking notes and following up. Really, really, you're a great reporter. You also have an instinct for history. And I don't mean the boring history. I don't mean the stuff that's on Wikipedia. You're like digging in to cultures from a historical level. You're going back in time. What's your library like? What's your research process like? Because I think you really understand that you have to be very literate about history to write about food.
So I will say that, you know how people do refrigerator tours? I totally want to do a bookshelf tour because I really do have a great collection. And that's just growing. And
I love that.
I live near Kitchen Arts and Letters, which is an amazing bookstore. And they have so much knowledge there. And you go in and there'll be an entire book devoted to some incredibly niche subject that you suddenly want to know all about. So I'm just really excited, like just stepping into that store. But I think with the research, so this all goes back to when I first started writing restaurant reviews for the Times, and you think, oh, well, how, I can just write about the food. And then I started to run out of words. Yeah. Right? Like, so you're saying something is sweet or sour or
the braise was not right. It was too salty. I mean, that runs out.
Crunchy on the outside and tender on the inside. I mean, all these things. And my editor at the time, Nick Fox, said, He said, "Stop writing about the food."
Mm.
Obviously, my job is to write about
No,
food.
Nick is.
But he was right.
I'm glad you mentioned your editor as a great note.
No, it was great. That has guided me for years, because when you're stuck, so when you go back and you go into the history, that gives you a way in, and it also actually makes describing the food easier, because then you understand where it came from and what's going on, and so that it's not just about whether it's good or not, delicious or not, or what does that even mean? Sometimes a dish can be really challenging, but it's interesting, and why. A dish that might be challenging for me is totally basic to somebody else or in another culture. I have to be able to understand why it's beloved, where it is, where it comes from, and how can I relate to it. I often think that's part of training your palate, right? You have to learn, especially with Hungry City, because I was eating so many different kinds of food, and that was a real privilege to learn.
It makes sense now with the way you crafted the lineup of restaurants at Hungry City. You couldn't really have a firm take on certain cuisines because you clearly had never had it really before. But what you could do is research it. I think you also have done a cool thing where you're giving the Times reader what they want, because there's plenty of Times readers who don't really care about restaurants, but they want to read about history and culture, and they want to read great writing, and you're giving them what they want. Even if they won't go out to that restaurant in Bensonhurst, they still are interested in the culture and the history of that cuisine.
I hope so. And I'm really interested in the stories of the people, right? So,
yes.
Again, with all of these reviews, talking to the chef and just what is it? What is it they're trying to do? And how did they get there? And where did this come from? And there are always these great stories that just don't make it in, where that this particular thing, that this ingredient is very specific to maybe something that their late uncle did and that they've never forgotten. And they're doing this homage and I wanted to stuff all my reviews full of this.
I hope you have that ability to break the format out of the reviews. I really loved your longer pieces in tea in particular. You wrote about the Italian tomato. You wrote about Parsi cuisine in Mumbai, which I just loved that piece so much.
Oh, thank you.
I got to go to the Ripping Club personally, and your piece helped me research something I was writing. And I wonder if you're going to be able to write for tea. And are they going to give you the opportunity, your editors, to do notebooks and just kind of get back to that tea writing? Because I think that is really something I would miss if that was no longer part of your output.
Oh, that's so nice. I loved writing for tea. I hope I'll still be able to. My editor there, Kurt Soller, is brilliant. I'm also so lucky. I'm working with Patrick Farrell now in the restaurant section, and he's great. I feel like I've been so lucky with my editors. I know that sometimes people have bad experiences. I just feel like I've had the best editors in the business.
Patrick Farrell, legend in the game.
Yes.
I've never met Patrick. I have corresponded over email. Come on the show, Patrick.
Oh yeah, I
want to hear. He's edited all the critics. He's really just part of how the desk runs.
I'll see if I can coax him over. He just so great, and I think So these are editors who push you to be better. They all have their own approaches and their ways. Yeah. So of course they also hold your hand and make you feel like you're really good the way you are. But
totally,
we love it. And now, but they make you want to be a better writer. And what more could you ask? So so I had such an amazing relationship with tea. To work for a visionary like Hanya Yanagihara, and they gave me so much freedom. They might have an idea, and then I would turn in something, and they would say, "This is entirely not what we expected, but great."
Wonderful.
Yes, isn't that so nice?
That's a nice trust. No, it's trust. I think that they put out a big magazine several times a year, and they know that they can trust you. I have writers as well like that on staff at Taste, so I recognize that. Do you have a favorite tea story from the past couple years, or even for your long run writing for them?
I really liked writing about fake cakes. Do you remember that during the pandemic, where there are the cakes that look like household objects?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
That was really fun. Recently I wrote about Sichuan pepper, and I was able to connect it to doing ketamine in nightclubs.
Yeah.
Somehow. And so writing about an ASMR, and I think Virginia Woolf got in there too. And so I sometimes just making the connections, the connections that aren't necessarily obvious at first look, is part of what makes it fun.
I mean, very zeitgeisty of you to talk about ketamine in Sichuan. It spans thousands of years, but I love that about your writing. I don't want to embarrass you, Ligaya, but I hope you could do us a favor. I'd like you to read the lead of your first proper review as co-chief critic. I loved it. It was of The View. We'll talk about the actual review, but I just want you to read a little bit of the lead, because it's such a Ligaya piece, and we rarely do this on the show, but you're game for it, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so nice. Thank you. All right, I haven't read this out loud, so we'll see how it goes. Nearly 2,000 years ago, Rome burned for 7 nights straight. Nero, the 26-year-old emperor, did not fiddle through the disaster as famously claimed. Bowed string instruments didn't exist. But as soon as the flames died down, he started building a vast palace over the ruins, big enough to house a 120-foot-tall statue of himself. There he alternately wooed and menaced his fellow aristocrats in a round banquet hall that rotated on a giant pillar, likely powered by flowing water, while pipes in the ceiling rained down perfume. We have megalomania to thank, then, for the world's first revolving dining room. Not until the 20th century did anyone attempt such a feat again.
It's really good.
Oh, thank you.
Drawing that comparison, it's funny. I mean, it's funny, and I love it. I mean, how do you write your leads?
Well, I mean, the lead. This is the horror of the empty page, right? You have to start. Where do you find it? Every time it's brutal. I think that. So when I was thinking about this particular restaurant, which is a revolving restaurant. So it's kind of a gift. Yeah. I knew that there had to be something. So I thought, let's research. And there is an entire book devoted to revolving architecture that I found.
Oh, amazing. So you reviewed that book to write this piece?
I mean, I looked through it. I have to admit, I did not read all maybe 500 pages.
I wouldn't expect that for a weekly column, Ligaya. Can't read everything. You may be a fast reader, but not that fast.
But yeah, so I think that the fact that so the story of Nero, I think it also this particular time of this precarious moment, this sort of apocalypse in Rome of this fire, and that the response would just be, I need a palace. And the 120-foot-tall statue. I should note this is all coming from Suetonius's take on Nero. So it's other historians say maybe it was only 96 feet tall, but still.
Yeah.
And I loved this idea, though, that this was sort of a one-of-a-kind thing that then just did not happen again until the 1950s. And then I was also thinking, and maybe this is where hopefully all of my tea writing will still come to play, which is I was thinking, well, why? This is always the question. It's not just that the thing exists, but so revolving restaurants became popular in the 1960s. Why would that be? And so I had to do some hard thinking. There's not an answer out there necessarily. So I thought, well, I mean, it does coincide with the space age. And was there something about seeing the world from above? Obviously, there's aviation, all of these moments, and this very optimistic moment for America, especially. I mean, there are revolving restaurants all over the world, but we thought so much was possible. Yeah. Right? Like we could have the world at our feet.
It's such an interesting take, and you really thought deeply about the framing of it. And like revolving restaurants just in history, can't think of one example of the food being particularly good. You think of like the Space Needle in Seattle has a restaurant up there, right? And it revolves, and it's very touristy, and there are a bar or something. But the idea that Danny Meyer opens up a restaurant in this iconic, and that space had been there for a long time, and was maybe selling Sun Chips at some point before the reboot.
A buffet.
I'm sure a buffet, and what a wonderful tourist attraction to see Times Square from 360 vantage. So when you go in and dine there, I mean, from the review, it felt like for a 1 star, you gave it a very fair take. It didn't feel like you were like blown away by the ambition of this restaurant, but it seemed like it fit the space.
Well, I think 1 star is good. And that is so. I don't think that when I'm approaching this, we only have 3 4-stars in New York City right now, and there's not that many 3-stars actually either. So I feel like I want to restore the sense that a 1-star is a respectable. That's a respectable rating. The food is so much better than it has to be for where it is and for that panorama, which will draw people no matter what. So I wanted to honor that while also recognizing that not everything. You're not going to go and have the meal of your life there, but there are different reasons. There are different restaurants for different reasons. Exactly. There are different restaurants for different moments. I want to embrace all of that. Why there's a place just to go somewhere, and the food isn't necessarily the focus. It's good enough, and that's good too, right?
And
there's a place in our lives for that.
And 1-star means something. You said it very clearly, and I think that there's still maybe after this interview, but there's always been this question about what did the stars mean.
Yes.
And you've done us a service by saying that, because you should celebrate 1-stars. Now, of course, there's restaurants that will aim for 3 and get the 1. Right? That's a whole nother ballgame with the 1-star, right?
That's true. So a lot of it does depend on the ambition of the restaurant. And I think, there's a lot to think about here in terms of a 2-star. It's such a big range. And what do you give a 3-star for? And I have to say that I think that ambition that gets I think that swinging for the stars, even if it's not fully realized, that's worth rewarding too. So I'm still working it all out. Tejal and I have lots of talks about it. But yeah, this question of, I don't think it has to be a perfect space in order to get a 3-star. I don't think that 3 stars is hooked into a certain price point or, right? 3 stars to the Lechon place in the Bronx. That seems completely right to me if you go and you have joy.
That represents New York too.
Yes,
it represents
absolutely.
the socioeconomic dynamic of the city, that you shouldn't have to have a lot of money.
Absolutely.
To get a 3-star meal.
And then there is also this question of what happens when you go to the place that's pretty good, but so expensive. And at what point does it seem like it's too expensive for what it is? And at the same time, you know what? Labor costs are really high, and people deserve to be paid for their work. So I think it's a very complicated question. And food probably should cost more than it does. And just look at our food system. So there's so many things to think about. So I never take it for granted either way. I understand the person who is thinking, don't review all the expensive places. But I also understand that even the expensive places, it's not as if their profit margins are huge.
The profit margins are the same, which is very, very, very low. No one's getting exorbitantly wealthy on running a restaurant.
Right.
I'm sorry, if you look at the grand scheme of businesses in our city. I have to ask about the idea of the mid restaurant, because I think I've talked to Bill Addison about this and many other critics over the years of interviewing restaurant critics. Part of your job is kind of unknown. You make these visits and you experience something that is not good, not bad, but maybe mid. And you can't really write about it. What is that? What is that like for you when you go somewhere that you just feel like it's not worthy of the review, and you've already spent this time there?
That can feel a little disappointing, and sometimes I'm disappointed on the behalf of the restaurant also, because people are working hard, and but there just might not be a story. It's my job to find the story, so I do try and I think about, is it worth it? Is there something else here? Are they doing anything that New Yorkers should know about? Is it just public service because this place is really hyped? So sometimes it can be enough. If a place is super hot, you can't get a reservation, and it's mid, then it would be a public service to tell people that.
It's called a newspaper for a reason.
Yes,
there's news in it.
Yes. But if there's a place that maybe it burned a little brightly at the beginning, but then a few months in, you can get reservations fairly easily, then maybe people are getting the picture.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't make sense. I don't think, first of all, I would never just write a review it feels cruel to pile on somebody who, right, it might be better just to pass over things in silence, I think.
You save them from themselves. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that aspect of the job. All that aside, though, do you get angry when you feel like you haven't been given value or you've been, I mean, I'm gonna say it, you've been ripped off. I mean, it happens. You have that feeling. Did you get angry a little bit?
So I've been lucky that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
I think I did have a disappointing meal the other night. And it just sort of made me a little sad because the restaurant was so charming. The people who worked there were clearly working hard. It had had a little bit of hype around it. So I just had expected more. And I thought, is part of the problem here my expectations? Would this have been fine if I hadn't come in and I ordered so much? Maybe I ordered too much, and maybe this is the place where they only have maybe 2 or 3 really good dishes. But if you get those and you have a great glass of wine, you'll have a lovely evening.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's very hard because my expectations going in are so much higher than someone else's. But I think when I think about anger, I think there was one time, I think I want to have a sense that the people in the kitchen respect what they're doing. If that makes sense?
It makes perfect sense.
That there's care and attention.
We don't want to have cynical restaurants in our
Yes,
life.
that's it. Yes.
You know, like cynical meaning like possibly trying to upsell based on cultural cachet, sneaking some things in just to get the bill up. You know, things that or serving dishes that they don't believe in, but they're doing it for cynical ways.
Yeah. I will say that one thing at this restaurant in this disappointing meal. So we had ordered just as a side some fries, right? Just to have on the side, some frites.
Because you always should.
Why not?
I mean, you always should.
Well, if there are frites on the menu, you get the frites.
If there's frites on the menu, you're going frites. It's not just Dame out there. There's some good fries in our city.
And never in my life have I taken a bite of a French fry and put it down.
Wow.
So
was it temperature?
It was texture.
Yeah.
A little too salty, a little too spongy.
The sponginess, I know the feeling. Yeah.
So I think I'm not hard to please when it comes to frites. I will happily eat McDonald's fries, which actually, of course, are like a gold standard.
100%, please.
But what I mean to say is that I've had many mediocre fries in my life that I've eaten.
Yeah.
Joyfully. Yeah. So I thought, what has happened here? Is something wrong with me? Or is something wrong with these fries? Have I lost all sense?
I mean, you're joking in a funny way, but like, do you think about that sometimes? Like, do you second guess your instincts? Like maybe you've changed, your palate's changed, or your capacity to love a certain dish has been diminished somehow? You know,
so Tejal and I talked about this too. I think there are always these longers, right, where there's suddenly a patch of time where nothing really excites you, and you think, have I lost it? And then you taste something that resets it all, and you say, oh, right, this can be so beautiful.
It's that January through mid-March time I think about most. I think about most because we've come away from the holidays. It's cold. It's miserable in New York. It can be really bad. And you're trying to get excited about certain cuisines that maybe express freshness, express warmth, and like you're in this like blizzard or this rain. And also it's just like a time of year I'm just saying, I see you having that moment of nothing is good. Yeah. But it's your job to like find the good stuff.
Although in the middle of a blizzard, you can come in and someplace takes you in and there's like the shimmer of low light and they serve you something warm. Or I remember actually a place, I think it was a Ukrainian place maybe, that in Queens, and it was so far from the subway in the depths of winter. It was, the wind. And I got in, right? And the vodka came right away and everything was suddenly haloed. and it just, so I think, yes, it's funny that so much can depend on your experience of a restaurant, the moment, the particular moment you go. So I know that even if, no matter how many times I go, other people aren't going to have the exact same experience I have. I just have to keep that in mind. I'm just offering a guide.
Okay.
So
on a human level, not on a critic level, is there a food you just don't like? Because you're a human. We're not talking about the critic. You're human, and we all have our preferences. Is there something you just don't like?
I'm not a fan of raisins.
Yeah.
Okay, they're very key in cooking, and when they're in a dish, I can.
Yeah.
that's different. But somehow raisins by themselves, when I see them, I think I try to evade them.
Yeah. They can be funky. But when you put like a sherry vinegar and you
transform them, and then they're juicy again, and they burst in your mouth. Yes. So, but I have to say, all of my little food tics like that, I think it's a me problem.
Yeah, you recognize it.
I'm ready to be open to all of those things.
This has been amazing, by the way. Thank you for coming in. A few more questions. I mean, you mentioned the travel and balancing it. Like, what is your travel? What are your travel plans? I mean, are you hitting a Delta Diamond this year? Are you going like on the road once a month? I mean, what's that like?
So I am thinking of taking. I'll probably take 3 or 4 trips in the next couple months. I like trains.
Yeah.
if it
in America, that can be challenging.
Well, I did once, years ago. I did a cross country trip to California by train. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have the time to do that anymore. I have a family, so I can't. But I did look into it. I thought, is it possible to take a train? Could I take a train to Chicago? And it would just take too long, and it's actually more expensive than flying.
Yeah.
So hopefully maybe once, twice a month. But, I've got to go to these restaurants more than once. So, and ideally not on the same visit, right?
Yeah.
You want to see a restaurant at different moments.
That is.
So that's a little tricky.
A scheduling challenge. Do you have help scheduling at all, or is it all on you?
I think the editor said that maybe somebody could help me, but thus far, I just officially started. I had my first official day at the Times on Monday.
Well, so I think we had emailed about that because, we think of you as a New York Times employee, part of this institution, but the fact is you're a new employee there now. This is a new full-time job.
Yeah, I was a freelancer for all those years, which was great. When my daughter was young, and just having the flexibility to just
100%
be there to pick her up from school. So,
what's the first week of the Times like? Are you just meeting people that you've known on paper and now you know them in person? What's it like?
Well, it's fun. It's fun being on Slack and suddenly get to DM people, or then you meet a Pulitzer Prize winner in the hallway, and it's thrilling. I have to say. So, I mean, maybe it gets old, but you walk in there and that's the newsroom. I mean, that's like and everybody's, like all these stories. The food section is right next to investigations. I just keep wanting to creep over there.
I bet. But I mean, the food section is like an anchor in the paper. I mean, not just cooking, which is obviously a huge financial success, but just it's part of the paper. It's in the morning. It's like really foundational to the Times. So I'm sure people are seeking you out.
Oh, well, we'll see.
We'll see. With all that travel and circling back, I mean, physically, how do you envision yourself, staying healthy? I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So I run. I run 40 miles. Maybe I'll have to up it to 50 miles a week.
You're 40 a week? Cool. Do you compete?
Long ago, before my daughter was born, so really long ago now. But I keep thinking someday I'll get back into it. And I made a New Year's resolution at the start of this year. It's the first New Year's resolution I have ever kept, which was to do push-ups every day. And I am up to 36 push-ups a day.
Incredible.
So,
and you started with basically 1 or 2?
I started with 10.
Okay, 10.
And I do have I do strength training once a week. I should do it more than once, but so trying.
Generally speaking, what's your route like? Where do you like to run around New York?
Well, I live right near Central Park, so very lucky.
Reservoir Loops.
Yeah, or I do the whole thing. So the whole thing is 6.1 miles. And there's like you can mix it up a little bit. So part of it is on the reservoir, and I ride the bridle path. I run the bridle path, and but yeah, that's my
lovely run.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Podcast, music, nothing at all. What's in the headphones?
It's music all the way.
Music.
Yeah, I think my playlist is 18 hours long because I just need to have constant variety.
Yeah, 18 hours mix, and you're going on shuffle.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I feel like you can come back and talk about running. I think it's a micro theme here. Last question before we get to taste check. How do you want people to remember the Ligaya era of the reviewer? I know, sorry, this is podcast me talking. I just have to ask that question because I think you have probably thought about that as you enter this new role. but say we're combing through the archives in 2050 and we're looking at this change, how do you want to be remembered?
Oh, I haven't thought about it. Maybe I should have thought about it. I think I was just so excited to get this
Totally.
gig.
It's a hard question at this phase.
I hope that I'll be remembered. I hope that the research and scholarship will matter in the long run. That that people might feel like they learned something, because I learned something when I go to the restaurant. So I'm hoping that the readers will learn something too, that I can pass that on.
I think that's a good answer. It's a tough question, especially so new in the role. But thank you for sharing that. I think it's like you're getting more than just what's on the plate, if it's good or not. And I just love that. On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
I don't know how fast and furious, but I'll do my best.
We typically cut the fast and furious part. We can be thoughtful and slow if you'd like. The best fruit.
Mango.
All year, or is there a certain season?
Oh, man. Well, only in season.
I know. Okay.
That's true. Do I have to name a fruit for every season?
You don't have to. That's, good follow-up question to me. The worst vegetable.
So this may sound slightly lame, but I don't know if there's a vegetable I hate, actually. I think that I just don't understand maybe all vegetables. I've never learned to love celery, but I want to, because people do amazing things with it. So I've got to try.
Respect that response. I think if you had been I don't like beets, that would be taped to some kitchen walls.
Oh no. Well, but I have to say, because I've had some celery dishes recently, which are really interesting.
What made it that way, without saying about the restaurant? But what made it interesting?
I thought it was a very cerebral. It was a dessert.
Okay.
So it was very cerebral, and the server said something really beautiful that she said, you can taste the aliveness of the celery. So I thought, okay, I'm meeting celery fully in this dessert, and I need to get to know celery better.
I love that response. I grew up in a community in West Michigan that is known as the Celery City, Portage, Michigan.
Wow.
So, props to celery. What is your typical breakfast?
It's probably very boring. It's yogurt, walnuts, blueberries every day.
Definitely not boring, and it makes a lot of sense that you have a very diet. We're going to unpack this a bit. Okay, what type of yogurt brand, or just?
It's Fage. It's 0%. I get my protein and my calcium. Walnuts and blueberries are superfoods.
How many food writers out there start with 0% Fage? I'm raising my hand. I am one of them. We sometimes have to just do the 0 Fage and move on.
Well, because the day will include chocolate, so that's second breakfast.
That's second breakfast, a little square here and there. The best dessert
of all time, or
it doesn't have to be a restaurant, just like category or the style of dessert.
First of all, I love all desserts.
I know you
generally.
do.
Maybe the celery one was more difficult, but so I can think of a specific thing off the top of my head is a tarte au citron that I had at Bontemps in Paris, which just seems to me like it's like a platonic ideal of a tarte au citron, which is it's got this shortbread cookie crust. It has the lemons come from somewhere special, and so they're extra. They have that extra bright sourness, and it's got meringue, and there's a little lemon gelée as well as the lemon. Anyway, it is a joy to eat. So.
Yeah.
But I should say, desserts that I've had recently, I don't know if I can throw this in. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it fast and furious.
We're not. We're editing that part out.
Okay.
There's no fast and furious here.
But I've twice had in the past. In 1 week, I had madeleines for dessert. At one place they just came, like a whole cone of mini madeleines. At another place they were special. When a madeleine is warm, it's all I want to eat. So
do you like a little texture on the outside of a madeleine? So there's like a little bit of a contrast between the inside and the outside.
Just a little.
Just a little.
Faint, so thin.
Exactly. It has to have that little thin coating of breaking through, and then you're getting to the sponge.
Yes. Yeah.
Warm. It's hard to do a pickup of a fresh madeleine at a busy restaurant. That's challenging.
It's really hard. I should say there is a madeleine spot in Paris that I went to. The madeleines were great, and then we took some home. And 12 hours later, they were fantastic.
Oh, that's
I thought, how is that even possible?
They usually get crunchy. Oh, wow.
Blé sucré, in case you're ever...
Good rap. A restaurant you wish you could bring back from the dead.
So, I was walking through the West Village the other night, and I passed the old Anissa space.
Oh, yeah.
And that was probably the first fancy restaurant I went to in New York. And my husband and I, we were total newbies in that sense. We went on New Year's Eve, which,
rookie move for some, but
totally
a joyous move for others.
And it was fantastic.
Wonderful.
So they didn't dial it in. They didn't try to dumb it down because it was all the newbies like us. And Anita Lowe's such a phenomenal chef that I just wish that she was cooking somewhere.
Yeah, I think I caught up with Anita a couple years ago, and she sounds like she's having a good time not cooking.
Well, more power to her.
More power to her. And for the record, by the way, New Year's Eve restaurants in New York can be some of the best meals ever. I think I misspoke when I said new. I think we like to flex that we don't go out to restaurants, but like New Year's Eve rules when you hit the right spot, because it's the hospitality is always dialed up and they got the balloons up. And sorry, yeah. I just want to state clearly that I'm not shading the New Year's Eve restaurant because it can be pretty fun. A couple more. When you're craving fast food, what's the move?
So this is, I feel like there's so many places that qualify as fast food in this city. So
for sure.
But I might have the same answer as we have a best sandwich question coming, I think, right?
I think we do.
Sorry to give that away. So it might be the same. So maybe if I say it now, then it'll spoil it later.
We can answer both questions and we'll end with a different question. Thank you for being aware of our...
unless we're talking about if we're on a road trip.
Sure. Yeah, outside of the state.
Okay,
I mean, it could be
if we're
anywhere.
on a road trip, please let there be a Taco Bell.
Oh, hell
because
yeah.
what else can I do?
There's a reason I know I liked you. Taco Bell. What's the order?
Oh, I mean, wow. Now, there aren't as many Taco Bells, so I have not been able to go lately. So now, off the top of my head, I have no idea.
I think on your travels, you might find one in parts of our country where they are quite plentiful.
Why are there not more Taco Bells? There are too many non-Taco Bells.
Non-Taco Bells. I mean, that's a good question. Maybe we can bring it up in a future episode. I think, why aren't there more Taco Bells?
Yes, yeah. I think we need to know.
Let's bring back mystery show.
So again, so more typically, it's whatever burger place, I will get the fries. That's my order.
Always the fries. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
Bangkok.
Amazing.
I could eat Thai food for the rest of my life.
Love that one. And let's end with the traditional ending question. Your favorite sandwich?
So I think it's in Sunnyside. Bolivian Llama Party makes a fried chicken sandwich, which I actually don't know how they do it. And I don't know if the secret is they have this mayo, I think it's pronounced yawa mayo that has it has Lakota chilies in it, which are just have a little more kick.
A little more kick, but maybe some acidity or astringency that's cool too, or whatever. Yeah,
everything. The bun is perfect.
Oh,
the crust on the chicken is perfect. The pickles are perfect. So
great answer, and what an amazing conversation.
Oh, thank
Ligaya,
you.
Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
It's so much fun.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanel and me, Matt Rodbar. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.